Hello and welcome to At the Leadership Table with retired Major General Jim Hoyer. Oftentimes people hear the word leader and they think only of political leaders, but leaders come in many forms, and that's worth exploring. I'm Jim Hoyer, born and raised in West Virginia, a husband, a father, a new grandfather, and a retired military leader, serving for over 40 years in public leadership for our state and nation. Now, the most important mission I have going forward is to educate, motivate, and empower our next generation of leaders. At the leadership table with us today is Jason Pizatella. Jason is the Chief Executive Officer of the Contractors Association of West Virginia. Jason is a longtime friend and colleague. He has significant experience across the state of West Virginia. He's worked in gubernatorial administrations for 3 governors at both the cabinet secretary level, the chief of staff level. We've worked a number of projects together, and he is a strong advocate for the state of West Virginia, for its people and our communities. And Jason, it is a privilege to have you at the leadership table today.
Thank you, General, for having me. This is particularly meaningful for me, given our longstanding friendship and as much as we've worked together, and as much as I learned from you over the years. This is particularly exciting for me, and I appreciate you having me on the podcast.
Well, Jason, I'm going to start out by asking you the same first question we ask all of our guests. Please share with us a standout moment when you learned something really important about leadership.
It's a great question, and it's one that I've reflected on a lot over the years because I've been around a lot of leaders that had different styles and in various leadership roles. And I think the one thing that stands out for me is, and the importance is the ability to listen rather than, you know, rather than speak. I've been around, and you've been around way more than but I've been around so many situations where I was so happy that I was not the smartest person in the room because I didn't have all the answers. I still don't have all the answers. And what I tell younger colleagues that I work with now, whether they're lawyers or contractors or people that work in politics or want to be in politics, my message to them is pretty simple, and that is make listening your first objective or goal when you're trying to solve a situation. Because I've learned so much just by listening to people who are smarter than me, and because it helps me as a leader of an organization of 500 members that represents 25,000 employees across the state of West Virginia. I've learned that it's a lot more meaningful when someone who lives it every day is telling me something that I didn't otherwise know, for me to do my job better. And so I think that's a standout moment for me is that point in my life, probably 10 years ago, where I decided, okay, Jason, you're not the smartest person in the room. It's better to listen first and talk second. And sometimes that means talking less.
No, and I think that's a great example. And you and I have worked with and for leaders who have built a large part of their success on being good at listening to uh, the people of West Virginia as constituents, as people they serve, and has served them well. And so you're now in a different leadership role than your past career in state government. You're the chief executive officer for what I would consider to be one of the fundamental building blocks of our state's economy, and that is the Contractors Association. You mentioned the number of members you have and the number of employees you represent. So tell us a little bit more about the mission of the Contractors Association and what your main goals and priorities are.
So our association has been around since 1923. We celebrated our 100th anniversary a few years ago. And and I'm only the sixth person to lead the organization since that time. My predecessor was here for almost 40 years before me. And we're the oldest and I would argue the most influential advocate for the construction industry in West Virginia. We have everyone from the building and highway contractors for roads and bridges, utilities, broadband, anything vertical construction, and on the commercial side, we represent. And I tell our members all the time that we don't have an association without its membership. And so many people have so many different demands and ways that they can spend their time and money these days that association membership for a long time was on a downward trajectory, not just mine, but across the state and probably across the region. And so when I got here, I made it one of my first and primary goals to make sure that every single day our association provides meaningful benefit for our members, whether that is advocating for them before a state agency, whether that's running a safety program to make sure the men and women that work there do so safely and can go home to their families, or lobbying for additional funding and infrastructure projects at the state legislature. All of those things combining with engaging our members to allow them to work with people across the industry that they might not otherwise have met is really the primary goals for our association. It's a competitive industry. Our men and women compete with each other on a competitive bid process on a daily basis, and so they obviously want to be the best at what they do. But for the betterment of the industry, we put that aside when we have our meetings in promotion of friendship, and because we think it makes our industry better. And we don't have an industry and we don't have an association without the workers that are there to support it. And so that's what our primary goal is.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's important to point out to our listeners that, as you mentioned, you followed a gentleman, Mike Clauser, who spent 40 years leading the association, highly respected across the state. So for Jason to be selected to be the chief executive officer of the Contractors Association really says a lot about his leadership skills and abilities to take on that task. So, Jason, we've had some good successes over the last couple of years with large manufacturing sites moving into West Virginia, Nucor Steel being a great example of that. You guys, as the Contractors Association, play an important role in making sure that that can happen and come to fruition. And you really focus on hiring West Virginians first. So, talk a little bit about that and the high paying jobs that are available in the various employers of the association.
Yeah, it's. I didn't realize it, General, until I got here as a lawyer by training and having been in private practice and represented contractors in a number of capacities. I didn't realize until I got here how important it was to advocate for West Virginia contractors. And aside from the West Virginia Jobs Act that requires a certain percentage of labor on public projects to come from within West Virginia, it wasn't until I got here and really started meeting with the men and women up at Nucor and several of the other large projects that have happened over the years, Rockwell in the Eastern Panhandle, Procter and Gamble, and others, come to mind. Is we have thousands. There's about 2,000 jobs, construction jobs, give or take, right now working at Nucor. And while the general contractor, that is the person overseeing the work, is from out of state because they work with Nucor across the country. About 1,200 of those 2,000 are subcontractors that are domiciled right here in West Virginia. And speaking only for Nucor and Mason County, it has done tremendous benefits for the community and of Mason County and the surrounding area. And once I got here, I realized that workforce recruitment and retention, if it wasn't our biggest challenge before, it is now. Because having worked around state government for a while, I know how our state and federal partners invest in workforce training programs. But I tell the young men and women today, starting with the fifth, sixth, seventh grade, say, hey, look, college is not for everybody. A four-year degree is not a requirement for you to be successful in West Virginia. And if you have an aunt, uncle, parent, grandparent, whatever that's in the industry, and you really want to have a meaningful career that's where you can have very little to zero student debt, a very competitive wage right out of high school or trade school, and to have an industry like mine that has members that are generous enough that will pay for someone to go get that extra credential. Um, it could mean the world for a young person, and it could mean the difference between them going to Charlotte, North Carolina, or Knoxville, Tennessee, or farther away versus staying here in West Virginia. And so, while we of course have professionals, engineers, architects, um, lawyers, sureties. It's the men and women in the construction trades that really what make our industry go. And to be able to tell them what a promising career is available for West Virginians, whether you're a veteran or whether you're someone that's entering the workforce for a second or third time because of some type of interruption, we have an industry that's there for them, and it's starting to pay dividends.
So pull on that just a little bit. So your members of your association are hiring a broad spectrum of workforce from a college educated engineer to a heavy equipment operator. So maybe pull on that just a little bit more uh, and tell us what kind of jobs your association members are looking to fill in West Virginia right now.
Across the board, everywhere from just an entry level laborer position or a equipment operator position, all the way up to senior project manager on the construction side, on the professional side, engineers, architects. We hire them all, and it's not unique to construction. It's across a lot of sectors that I've seen in recent years, but a lot of people are getting to the age where they're getting close to retirement. And we have second or third generation owned companies in our association that um, around 28, 29, 2030 are going to be looking to hire several hundred additional men and women to continue to build a better West Virginia, which is kind of what our, one of our themes are as this association, in addition to being hard at work. So we hire them all, and we have great relationships with our public school partners, our private school partners, and our community technical education system. Because I had just yesterday, I had a member tell me that he would hire. He just was awarded a very a big contract, big highway contract in southern West Virginia. He said, Jason, I could hire 100 more people tomorrow, and I'll train them, and I will pay them to train them if I could just find 100 people to hire. And somebody that would want to to come for a week, and because our guys get paid weekly for the most part, and they get a paycheck on Friday, and he just wants them to come back on Monday. That's one of our biggest challenges. Are even before the pandemic, it was somewhat of a challenge, but even more now. People are more transient in nature. They stay for 3, 4, 5 years and go do something else because they want that instant gratification as a young person. But man, for people that really want to put in the time and effort, construction industry could really be for them.
And you and I have worked on this when we were in state government together, but also now in your new role. And one of the challenges we face is that mismatch between where the job opportunities are in West Virginia and in some parts of our state that are still struggling in economic recovery, those jobs aren't available. So, how do we do a better job of getting the message out to young people in certain parts of the state that there are jobs available in West Virginia and you don't have to go to another state to find a career opportunity?
So we've started two programs just since I got here. One is called Build It Up West Virginia, and it starts in the fourth, fifth, sixth grade, where we're in four counties right now. We're trying to expand that over time. Where we bring contractors and construction equipment to elementary schools and let kids ask questions, let kids have hands-on experience that may like to work with their hands, like to be outside, so they can see it firsthand. That's for the younger kids. For the older kids, or for young adults, or someone that is in middle age that's looking for a second career, or a veteran, or someone that went through Jobs in Hope, West Virginia, or went through the Mountaineer Challenge Academy, which I know you're intimately familiar with, General. They, whatever the situation may be, we have a program called Build West Virginia, buildwv.com. And that's kind of where the resources are focused for those that are maybe in a second or third career. Maybe they're getting out of the military service. All of the resources for a career in the construction industry are in that one spot, and that is buildwv.com. So we've tried to tailor our recruitment strategies with two stools. One being those younger kids that are in fourth, fifth, or sixth grade that the college may not be for them. And then there's the older, not older generation, but older, men and women that are in a different spot in life. So they need different resources. We didn't want anybody to be kind of left out in the cold. And so we worked with the state superintendent of schools and our higher ed chancellor to help build WV.com really be a resource for those that want to come to the industry. And we're not quite there yet, but it's made a big difference.
And you mentioned two programs that you and I worked on together in state government. Tell us a little bit about some of the success you've had with Jobs and Hope and bringing people from addiction recovery back into the workforce and some of the young people who've had challenges who went on to Mountaineer Challenge Academy to finish their education and the opportunities that presents.
I was in a Mountaineer Challenge Academy graduation earlier this year, or I guess earlier in 2025, and I had a parent of a student that graduated through the academy, somebody who I didn't know, someone who I have not seen since that day. Um, she put her arm around me and she said, I had a name tag on that said where I was from and what I do for a living. And the reason why we were there is because the construction industry has job interviews, and we interview those candidates. And nine out of 10 of them that on that particular day left with a job offer. And this lady said to me, she said, Jason, I don't know where Jacob would be without a program like this. She said, being his mom and dad, tried a whole host of different ways to get him on the right path. And it wasn't until the structure of the Mountaineer Challenge Academy did he really get that second chance to be able to be a meaningful participant in life. And his parents were so proud of him that day, and he left with a job offer from one of the members of our association. And it's that kind of meaningful stuff that makes everything else I've done in my career secondary. To know that a program like that, supported by the state and supported by the Guard and supported by other state and federal partners, are impacting people's lives. And I know I spoke about Jacob, but there are hundreds, probably thousands of just like them. And it doesn't always work out, right? But if we can
Right.
save 9 or 10 students or young people out of 20, I consider that a success.
And your members of your association have been very aggressive in supporting Jobs and Hope with both equipment for training as well as trainers for that as well. And we know in West Virginia that the opioid epidemic hit us uh, significantly. It's destroyed generations and families, but there are stories of work that's being done to help people overcome those challenges.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, for sure. And I don't know of many other industries other than mine. There are a few, but I don't know many others that are have been willing to give men and women second chances like that.
mhm.
And you start out at an entry level position as a laborer, making $22 an hour, and within 2, 3, 4, 5 years, when you get the skills necessary to proceed, I mean, I've seen men and women go to making in the high five figures, low six figures very, very quickly, and they do, and they can support their families and do so right here in the Mountain State. It's just very meaningful for all of us because, again, we don't have an industry without our members and the employees that work for them.
And you're looking for those men and women that want to stay with those organizations for years to come, correct?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It certainly would be a win-win if somebody wanted to make a career after an employer invests the money in training in them, but it doesn't always work out and they go from one to the other. But if they're staying in the industry, they're staying in West Virginia, then that's a good thing for all of us.
So, Jason, I've known you for a number of years. You've spent your career both in state government and now with the Contractors Association, trying to make West Virginia a better place, helping us uh, grow and develop and create opportunities for the next generation. So, tell us as we close out here, what's your biggest hope for West Virginia moving forward?
I just hope that, for so long, West Virginia has been 48th, 49th, or 50th in the categories that we don't want to be in. And we're first, second, third, or fourth in categories that we don't, that are on the opposite side. And whether it's workforce participation or whatever the case may be, our motto is building a better West Virginia. And we as a state have been stuck at right around 1.7, 1.8 million people for a long, long time with a very low workforce participation rate. And so my biggest hope is that in the next 5 to 10 years that we really try to move the needle there. I know our policymakers are doing very best they can, and we're starting to see some results, albeit incremental in nature. But Rome wasn't built in a day, and West Virginia is not going to overcome its problems that have existed for generations in a day or even a year. But our industry is ready and willing to try to be part of the solution. We're not the only solution, but we're trying. And being able to drive by and see a bridge or a building or a school or a National Guard armory or something that someone has built within our association and be able to say, "Hey, I did that." That's one of the coolest parts of my job, and to be able to see the fruits of all the labor that you and I worked on together over the last decade or so, and others. That's what really makes my job satisfactory, and it's one of the best jobs I've ever had.
Well, Jason, I appreciate your advocacy, your leadership for West Virginia and making West Virginia a better place. But most importantly, appreciate your friendship over the years. And thank you for joining us at the leadership table today.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you having me.
Thanks for listening. This has been At the Leadership Table with retired Major General Jim Hoyer. Did you know you can now find me on social media at RMG Hoyer? That's HOYER, or email me at rmgjameshoyer@gmail.com.